My perfect boyfriend showed my sister fake therapy notes about my mental health decline, then blocked the door. When I tried to leave and said, "All I want is to help you." When I screamed that I wasn't crazy, he calmly suggested, "Let's not make this worse for you." I just stared at him. That was 4 months ago. This morning, he was sitting in an interrogation room. Liam had been the perfect boyfriend for 6 months. He boosted my GPA from 2.8 to 3.6, charmed all my friends, and even my parents treated him like their own son. Then my world exploded overnight and I couldn't understand why. Sarah, my sister, stopped answering my texts completely. When I cornered her on campus, she backed away like I was radioactive. "I haven't heard from you in weeks," she said, genuinely confused. My stomach twisted as I showed her our daily message thread. Her face went pale. "Those aren't the messages I got from you." The text on her phone showed me telling her to leave me alone and calling her pathetic. Messages I never sent. My friend group began avoiding me like I carried some contagious disease. They would see me coming and suddenly remember urgent appointments. Maddie, my best friend, actually crossed the street to avoid talking to me. When I finally found Jake, a guy I'd known since middle school, after class, he looked genuinely hurt. He said, "The things you said about my girlfriend were really messed up." I had no idea what he meant. My mom called sobbing hysterically. "Why won't you talk to me anymore? Your texts have been so cruel." My hands shook as I checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages to her. When I called her back, she said the messages came from my number, but the words weren't mine. "You called me a controlling beach and told me to stop ruining your happiness." Liam found me crying in my dorm room, completely devastated. He wrapped his arms around me as I shook. "Maybe they're jealous of us," he whispered, stroking my hair. "Some people can't handle seeing others happy." When I told him I felt like I was losing my mind, he looked concerned. He said, "Stress can do crazy things to your memory, babe. Maybe you should talk to someone." He researched therapists for me and even drove me to the appointment. The therapist said that sometimes our minds play tricks when we're overwhelmed. She recommended Liam help manage my schedule to reduce stress. I felt relieved someone understood what was happening to me. Liam took over my calendar and finances with gentle efficiency. I was grateful to have someone who cared when everyone else had abandoned me and lied about it, or so I thought. Very soon, my organized life started crumbling faster than ever. Important emails vanished from my inbox. My laptop got a virus and shut down during my online exam. I'd oversleep despite setting multiple alarms. My phone would die overnight even when plugged in. Liam would find me panicking and suggest maybe I needed more help than we thought. One of my professors pulled me aside looking genuinely frightened, saying, "Your recent emails to classmates have been disturbing, aggressive, and completely unlike you." She showed me messages I had supposedly sent calling my study group worthless idiots. My vision blurred as I read words I'd never written. When my sister stopped calling, I knew something was catastrophically wrong. My family received texts from my number telling them I was done with their toxic drama. Liam held me while I sobbed about my family cutting me off. "Maybe this is for the best," he murmured. "They were always holding you back anyway." My gut screamed that something was wrong, but I couldn't trust my own mind anymore. Everyone confirmed I was acting strange. Even a licensed therapist agreed I was struggling. I started hiding a journal under my mattress, documenting every weird incident. Patterns emerged that made my blood run cold. Every disaster was immediately followed by Liam offering to take control of another piece of my life. One night, I pretended to sleep and watched through barely cracked eyelids. Liam sat at my desk with my laptop open. He was logged into my email, responding to messages as me. I watched him delete 3 job interview invitations and decline a birthday party invitation. My heart hammered so loud I was sure he'd hear it. He had been systematically destroying my life while playing the perfect supportive boyfriend. But I had no proof anyone would believe. He controlled my money, my schedule, and apparently every single communication I sent. Worse, he'd convinced everyone I was mentally unstable. I remembered my old gaming account that Liam didn't know existed. The next morning after he left, I logged in desperately hoping my sister would be online. She was. I begged her to come over and help me, that I needed her. Within 30 minutes, she had come over and was helping me go through Liam's laptop. We found a folder containing hundreds of screenshots, messages Liam had sent pretending to be me, job rejections sent from my email, social media posts designed to make me look unhinged. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. Liam's car door slammed outside. I frantically copied everything to a flash drive and closed the laptop. Liam has never laid a hand against me, but in that moment, I feared for my sister and myself. As Liam walked through the door with that same perfect smile I'd fallen in love with, the flash drive felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. Sarah froze beside me, her eyes darting between Liam's face and mine. He closed the door behind him with deliberate slowness, his movements controlled and precise. His gaze landed on the laptop, then shifted to the flash drive clutched in my trembling fingers. The perfect boyfriend mask didn't slip immediately. Instead, something worse happened. His smile widened, becoming sharper at the edges. He set his keys on the counter with a soft click. The sound echoed in the sudden silence of my dorm room. Sarah shifted closer to me, her breathing shallow and quick. I could feel her fear mixing with my own, creating a suffocating atmosphere. Liam tilted his head slightly, studying us like specimens under a microscope. His voice came out cold and measured, completely different from the warm tones I'd grown accustomed to. He asked how long I'd known. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken threats. My mind raced through possible responses while my body remained frozen. Sarah's hand found mine, squeezing tight. I backed toward the bedroom door, calculating the distance, the obstacles, the likelihood of escape. Liam noticed the movement. Of course he did. He noticed everything. I lunged for my phone on the nightstand, desperate to call for help. His hand shot out faster than I expected, wrapping around my wrist with firm pressure. Not violent, not painful, but completely immobilizing. He spoke about misunderstandings, about talking things through calmly, all while maintaining that iron grip on my arm. Sarah tried to pull me away from him, but Liam's other hand produced a manila folder from his messenger bag. He released my wrist to open it, revealing pages of therapy notes. Dr. Martinez's letterhead stared back at me. The documents detailed recommendations for monitoring due to self-harm risks. My stomach dropped as I read phrases I'd never heard in our sessions. The papers looked authentic, down to the watermark and signature. They were dated weeks ago, long before I'd discovered his deception. He'd been preparing for this moment, anticipating every move I might make. The realization hit me like ice water. This wasn't damage control. This was the next phase of his plan. I demanded my car keys, my voice cracking with barely controlled panic. Liam's expression shifted to one of concern, the caring boyfriend persona sliding back into place face like a well-worn mask. He explained he'd hidden them for my safety, worried about me driving in my current state. The word unstable rolled off his tongue with practiced ease. He moved closer, speaking in soothing tones about starting fresh. He offered to delete everything, to go back to how things were before. All I had to do was return to therapy, let him help me properly. The same voice that once made me feel safe now made my skin crawl. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Sarah's name lit up the screen with incoming texts, though she stood right beside me. Liam's eyes narrowed as he realized I'd been communicating outside his carefully controlled network. His hand moved toward my phone with casual determination. I grabbed it first, but he simply waited, patient as always. He suggested we go for a drive to talk privately, away from neighbors who might misinterpret the situation. The way he emphasized misinterpret made it clear he'd already considered how this would look to outsiders. When I refused to leave and threatened to scream, he remained unfazed. He calmly explained how my documented paranoid episodes would frame any cry for help. The neighbors would simply request a wellness check, playing right into his narrative. He'd thought of everything. From his bag, he produced printed screenshots of messages. Hostile words attributed to me filled the pages. Messages to family, friends, colleagues. He asked if I really wanted to destroy his reputation when he'd only tried to help. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, I almost doubted myself for a moment. While he spoke, I subtly angled my laptop to catch us in the webcam's view. My finger found the record button, pressing it while maintaining eye contact with him. He continued his explanation about intervention and safety, unaware that his calculated manipulation was being documented in real time. Sarah shifted nervously, and the movement drew his attention. His gaze swept across the room, taking in every detail with methodical precision. The laptop's camera light glowed softly in my peripheral vision. Such a small thing, easily missed if you weren't looking for it. But Liam was always looking. His eyes locked onto the tiny green indicator. The caring boyfriend facade crumbled completely. What replaced it was something I'd never seen before, something that had been hiding beneath the surface all along. His expression darkened, lips pressing into a thin line. He reached for the laptop with deliberate slowness. I slammed it shut, but we both knew it was too late. The recording existed. Evidence existed. His carefully crafted reality had its first crack. Liam straightened his shoulders and pulled out his phone. He spoke conversationally about the emergency therapy session he'd scheduled with Dr. Martinez for tomorrow morning. His thumb moved across the screen as he typed. Within seconds, my phone buzzed with an appointment confirmation I hadn't requested. Sarah tried to intervene, but Liam held up a hand. From his bag, he produced a small digital recorder. My voice filled the room, talking about memory problems and feeling disconnected from reality. The words were mine, pulled from vulnerable moments and stitched together into a damning confession. Context stripped away, leaving only the evidence of instability. He demonstrated his control with casual cruelty. On his phone, he showed me screenshot after screenshot. My email, my social media, my banking apps. Every password changed while I slept. Every security question updated. My digital life belonged to him now, and we both knew it. Desperation drove me to the landline on my desk. My fingers barely touched the receiver before Liam explained that those calls were routed through a service too. He could listen, disconnect, redirect as needed. Even this lifeline was compromised. More documents emerged from his seemingly bottomless bag. Legal forms, medical evaluations, witness statements, all regarding involuntary commitment procedures. Dr. Martinez's signature appeared multiple times. Professor Williams had provided a statement about my concerning behavior. The papers were notarized and dated weeks ago, a trap waiting to be sprung. Panic overwhelmed rational thought. I grabbed my laptop and hurled it at the window, hoping to break through and scream for help. The safety glass cracked but held firm. Liam observed my outburst with clinical detachment, then gestured at the damaged window. This violent behavior, he noted, proved his concerns were justified. A knock at the door interrupted his analysis. Mrs. Chen's worried voice called through, asking if everything was all right. She'd heard the crash from upstairs. Liam moved to answer before I could react, his demeanor shifting instantly to concerned boyfriend mode. He opened the door with an apologetic smile. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened as she took in the cracked window and my distressed state. Liam explained I was having an episode, showing her the therapy documents with practiced concern. His performance was flawless. Mrs. Chen had always been kind to me, bringing cookies during finals week and checking in when I seemed stressed. Now she looked at me with a mixture of pity and fear. Liam's evidence was too compelling, his delivery too smooth. She believed him completely. She offered to stay and help watch me while Liam called Dr. Martinez for guidance. The betrayal stung worse than any physical blow. My neighbor, someone I'd trusted, was now part of my imprisonment. Liam thanked her warmly, the grateful boyfriend managing a difficult situation. As Mrs. Chen settled onto my desk chair, Liam revealed the full scope of his preparation. He produced a timeline, meticulously documenting my supposed decline. Fake diary entries in handwriting so similar to mine that I had to look twice. He'd been building this false narrative for months, creating evidence that would damn me. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. Every helpful gesture, every moment of support had been calculated. He'd tested his control incrementally, taking over small tasks before moving to bigger ones. I'd handed him my life piece by piece, grateful for the help. While Liam spoke with Mrs. Chen about my condition, I noticed my smart TV's browser was still open from earlier. My fingers flew across the remote, typing a desperate message to Sarah's social media. The words barely sent before the TV powered off completely. Liam held the power cord, having unplugged it with casual efficiency. He mentioned monitoring all my devices remotely, including ones I'd thought were private. My gaming account, my old tablet, even the smart TV. He showed me the message I'd just sent, already intercepted and deleted from Sarah's inbox. The digital prison was complete. The doorbell rang. Dr. Martinez had arrived within an hour of Liam's call, despite it being evening. Her promptness suggested prior arrangement. She entered with professional concern, immediately beginning an evaluation to determine if hospitalization was necessary. The trap was closing, and I could feel the walls pressing in from all sides. Dr. Martinez conducted her evaluation with practiced efficiency, asking questions that seemed designed to elicit specific responses. I watched her write notes while Liam provided context about my recent behavior. He mentioned incidents I didn't remember, conversations that never happened, symptoms I'd never experienced. The therapist nodded knowingly at each revelation, as if confirming a diagnosis she'd already made. When Dr. Martinez referenced therapy sessions we'd never had, discussing topics I'd never brought up, the full extent of their collaboration became clear. She asked about the voices I heard at night, the paranoid thoughts about being watched, the violent impulses I'd supposedly confessed. Each question built upon Liam's fabricated narrative, creating a clinical picture of severe mental illness. My attempts to explain the truth sounded exactly like the delusions Liam had described. The more I insisted he was manipulating everyone, the more paranoid I appeared. The harder I fought against their narrative, the more I seemed to confirm it. Even I could hear how my protests mirrored the symptoms they'd outlined. The trap was perfectly constructed. Mrs. Chen mentioned observing strange behavior over the past weeks. She recounted times she'd seen me talking to myself in the hallway, arguing with no one, acting agitated for no reason. As she spoke, I realized these incidents coincided with times Liam had visited my apartment while I was in class. He'd been impersonating me, creating witnesses to my supposed deterioration. Liam played an audio recording from his phone. My voice filled the room, rambling about people trying to control me, about conspiracies against me, about not being able to trust anyone. The recording was real, pulled from private moments when I'd been journaling out loud, processing my thoughts. But edited and presented without context, it sounded like textbook paranoia. Dr. Martinez recommended immediate hospitalization for a 72-hour psychiatric hold. She explained the legal requirements while I tried to show them the evidence on my laptop. But Liam had already moved it during the commotion, and the flash drive had vanished from where I'd dropped it. My proof had disappeared as efficiently as everything else in my life. I turned to Mrs. Chen, begging her to check the laptop herself to look for the spyware folder. I found myself using Liam's own techniques, speaking calmly about what she might find, suggesting she verify the evidence independently. The irony wasn't lost on me. To survive his manipulation, I had to become manipulative myself. Mrs. Chen hesitantly opened the laptop while Liam watched with apparent concern. She found the monitoring software immediately, but Liam smoothly explained it was a safety measure installed with Dr. Martinez's guidance. He showed documentation authorizing the software to prevent self-harm, complete with my forged signature. Mrs. Chen relaxed, convinced by the official-looking papers. The doorbell rang again. Sarah entered without waiting for an answer, her face flushed from running. She'd received my desperate message before Liam deleted it, but her relief at finding me safe quickly turned to confusion as Liam showed her the psychiatric evaluation forms and explained the situation. Sarah's cybersecurity expertise should have helped, but Liam's evidence was too sophisticated. He showed her my supposed messages about being controlled, my paranoid posts on forums she'd never heard of, my searches for ways to fake mental illness. Each piece of evidence used my writing style perfectly, containing details only I would know, making them nearly impossible to dispute. Dr. Martinez explained the urgency of filing commitment papers within the hour. She painted a picture of escalating danger, of potential self-harm, of the need for immediate intervention. The pressure mounted as she insisted Sarah, as my closest family member present, needed to make a decision quickly. Sarah refused to sign anything without more evidence. She demanded time to investigate, to verify Liam's claims independently. The resistance clearly frustrated Dr. Martinez, who began explaining legal liability if something happened to me while Sarah delayed treatment. Liam pulled Sarah aside for a private conversation. Through the thin walls, I heard him mention sewer-slide ideation I'd supposedly expressed in therapy. He quoted specific conversations about ending my life, about feeling hopeless, about making plans. Sarah's face went pale as she returned to the room. The fear in her eyes told me his lies had found their mark. He proposed a compromise to avoid the trauma of forced hospitalization. I could stay under his supervision instead, with Sarah helping to monitor the situation. He positioned himself as the caring boyfriend trying to handle this sensitively, wanting to avoid institutional trauma while ensuring my safety. His performance was flawless. Sarah reluctantly agreed to the supervision plan, but insisted on staying overnight. She thought she was protecting me, not realizing she was becoming another bar in my cage. Liam welcomed her involvement with apparent gratitude, thanking her for being such a caring sister. As they discussed logistics, I discovered something horrifying on Liam's tablet, left carelessly on the coffee table. Hidden in his photo gallery were hundreds of images and videos documenting my supposed mental decline. Pictures of me looking disheveled that I didn't remember being taken. Videos of me acting strangely that seemed real but felt wrong. The evidence was comprehensive, showing months of careful documentation. The photos revealed the depth of his planning. Some were taken before we'd even officially started dating, showing he'd been watching me, studying me, preparing for this. He'd identified my vulnerabilities before making his first move. Our entire relationship had been a carefully orchestrated trap. Liam noticed me looking at his tablet and smoothly took it back, but not before I saw a folder labeled with another woman's name. The implications made my blood run cold. He'd done this before. There had been others. I wasn't his first victim, just his latest project. When I tried to access the folder, Liam explained it away as research for a psychology paper on relationship dynamics. But Sarah had seen my reaction, seen the fear that crossed my face. A seed of doubt had been planted, though she didn't yet understand its significance. The evening progressed with Dr. Martinez conducting more evaluations. Each assessment pushed the narrative further, establishing patterns of behavior that existed only in their fabricated reality. She asked about my family history, and Liam helpfully provided details about depression and anxiety that ran in my family, information he'd gathered through months of careful questioning, disguised as caring conversation. Every coincidence in our relationship unraveled as calculated manipulation. The classes we shared, the mutual friends who introduced us, the study groups where we connected, all had been engineered. He'd inserted himself into my life with surgical precision, creating the illusion of fate while following a methodical plan. Sarah searched my devices for evidence of the messages Liam claimed I'd sent. She found them all, perfectly integrated into my message history, complete with timestamps and metadata that seemed authentic. Her expertise told her something was off, but she couldn't identify what. The sophistication of the falsified evidence exceeded what she thought possible. As Sarah's investigation continued, she discovered forum posts under my username discussing ways to manipulate family members, to fake symptoms, to avoid treatment. The posts used my writing style but contained research I'd never done, medical terms I didn't know, strategies I'd never considered. Yet there they were, tied to my accounts, posted from my devices. The doubt in Sarah's eyes grew with each discovery. She began asking about our childhood, about whether I'd always been secretive, whether I'd shown signs she'd missed. honest. Liam's suggestions had taken root, making her question her own memories, wondering if she'd been blind to problems that had always existed. To maintain any credibility, I had to apologize for my paranoid accusations. The words tasted like poison as I admitted to being confused, to possibly misunderstanding Liam's help. I watched him savor my forced confession, knowing it would be used as evidence of my improving mental state under his care. While pretending to be compliant, I secretly searched for information about Liam's past. Using my damaged phone's cracked screen to hide the activity, I found social media profiles of his ex-girlfriend. Her accounts had gone silent 2 years ago, right around the time she'd been hospitalized for psychiatric issues. The parallels to my situation were undeniable. The most damning discovery came from an old photo on her friend's page. A comment mentioned how helpful Liam had been during her mental health crisis, how he'd coordinated with her doctors, managed her care, supported her through treatment. The exact same pattern, the same language, the same tragic outcome. But the evidence also showed something worse. In those old posts, I found my own comments from 2 years ago, supporting Liam's efforts to help his struggling girlfriend. I'd unknowingly participated in her destruction, believing his lies, validating his concern. The realization that I'd been an accomplice in his previous victim's fate made me physically ill. Liam noticed my distress and immediately called Dr. Martinez's attention to it. He suggested I was having another episode, possibly accessing disturbing content online that was triggering paranoid thoughts. Dr. Martinez agreed that my internet access should be restricted for my own well-being. The evaluation continued with tests designed to assess my threat level to myself and others. Every question seemed loaded, every answer potentially damning. When I remained silent to avoid incriminating myself further, Dr. Martinez noted my lack of cooperation as a concerning sign. Sarah found herself caught between loyalty to me and the mounting evidence of my instability. She watched me carefully, looking for signs of the mental illness everyone insisted I had. Every nervous gesture, every frustrated expression, every moment of anger at my situation got filed away as potential symptoms. Liam's ultimate goal became clearer as he discussed long-term care options with Dr. Martinez. He wanted medical power of attorney, control over my finances, the ability to make decisions about my treatment. He was building a legal framework that would make me his property, trapped in a system designed to silence victims like me. The conversation revealed his deeper motivation. This wasn't just about control. It was about creating a perfect victim who could never escape, never be believed, never threaten his freedom to do this again. Each woman he trapped became a test case, refining his methods for the next target. During Dr. Martinez's next round of questions, I chose to remain completely silent. I stared at the wall, unresponsive to her prompts, refusing to participate in my own destruction. But even silence became evidence of pathology. She noted my catatonic behavior as a serious symptom requiring immediate intervention. To gather evidence against Dr. Martinez, I had to manipulate Mrs. Chen into recording their private conversations. I suggested she might want to document the situation for her own protection, in case questions arose later. The kind elderly woman agreed, not realizing I was using her trusting nature for my own purposes. The transformation was happening in real time. To survive Liam's manipulation, I was becoming manipulative. To escape his lies, I was learning to lie. Every tactic I employed to defend myself made me more like him, eroding the very innocence I was trying to protect. Sarah watched this transformation with growing alarm. She could no longer distinguish between who I really was and who Liam claimed I'd become. The sister she'd known was disappearing, replaced by someone willing to use others, to scheme and manipulate for survival. Mrs. Chen's recordings captured Dr. Martinez admitting to bending ethical guidelines, discussing financial incentives from Liam, acknowledging the unconventional nature of their arrangement. But the recordings were made without consent, illegally obtained, inadmissible in any formal proceeding. When I tried to play the recordings for Sarah, Liam immediately pointed out that secretly recording people, manipulating elderly neighbors, and gathering evidence through deception were all signs of paranoid behavior. He was right, and we all knew it. Fighting him required becoming what he accused me of being. The evidence I'd gathered at such personal cost was dismissed as the product of mental illness. My very attempts to prove his manipulation became proof of my instability. Every action I took to save myself drove me deeper into the narrative he'd created. Sarah could no longer tell what was real. The sister she saw before her, secretly recording conversations, manipulating neighbors, lying and scheming, seemed to match Liam's descriptions perfectly. The doubt in her eyes solidified into something worse, pity mixed with fear. As the night wore on, Liam revealed more evidence of my supposed decline. Emails to professors with aggressive content, messages to employers withdrawing applications, posts on professional forums that destroyed my reputation, all sent from my accounts, all perfectly mimicking my communication style, all impossible to disprove. The systematic destruction of my life had been so thorough that even I began to question my own memories. Had I sent those messages during blackouts? Were there periods I couldn't remember? The gaslighting was so complete that reality itself became negotiable. Dr. Martinez prepared the final evaluation papers while Liam comforted Sarah, who was struggling with a decision ahead. He spoke about similar cases, about families who waited too long, about tragedies that could have been prevented with earlier intervention. His words painted a picture of inevitable disaster if Sarah didn't act. The pressure mounted as Dr. Martinez explained the narrow window for filing papers. The bureaucracy of mental health commitment required specific timing, forms that expired, judges who were only available certain hours. Every detail had been planned to create urgency, to prevent careful consideration. I made one last desperate attempt to reach Sarah, writing a note explaining everything while Liam was distracted. But when she read it, her face crumpled. The note, in my increasingly erratic handwriting, full of accusations and pleas, looked exactly like the paranoid ramblings of someone in crisis. Liam gently took the note from Sarah, adding it to his collection of evidence. He thanked me for providing such clear documentation of my current mental state. The kindness in his voice as he destroyed my last hope was more cruel than any violence could have been. The night stretched toward morning as decisions loomed. Sarah held the papers that would give Liam legal control over my life. Her hand shook as she considered signing them. She looked between Liam's concerned face and my desperate one, trying to discern truth from manipulation. Dr. Martinez made one final push, explaining how temporary guardianship would allow Liam to coordinate my care while preserving my rights. She made it sound reasonable, beneficial, like a helping hand rather than a prison sentence. The lies wrapped in professional terminology were almost impossible to refute. I watched Sarah's resolve weakening under the sustained pressure. The evidence was overwhelming, the professional opinions unanimous, the risk of being wrong too high. She wanted to help me, to save me, not realizing that her signature would complete my destruction. The moment arrived with terrible inevitability. Sarah's pen hovered over the signature line as Liam placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Dr. Martinez waited with practiced patience. Mrs. Chen watched with genuine concern, and I sat in silence, knowing that words would only confirm what they already believed. The pen trembled in Sarah's hand as she stared at the signature line. I could see the war playing out behind her eyes, torn between protecting me and trusting the overwhelming evidence. Dr. Martinez leaned forward slightly, her professional mask barely concealing her impatience. The clock on my desk showed 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until the filing deadline passed. My fingers found the edge of Mrs. Chen's phone in her purse, left carelessly on the floor beside her chair. While everyone focused on Sarah's decision, I slipped it out and began typing frantically behind my back. The message to campus security was brief, reporting a disturbance in my dorm. It wasn't much, but it might buy time. Liam noticed my movement and smoothly repositioned himself, blocking Mrs. Chen's view of her purse. His ability to adapt instantly to any situation terrified me more than his anger would have. He continued speaking softly to Sarah about responsibility and love, about difficult choices made for the right reasons. The first campus security officer arrived faster than expected, knocking firmly on the door. Dr. Martinez's composure cracked slightly as she glanced at her watch. Liam answered with his usual charm, explaining the situation as a family intervention for a troubled student. The officer, barely older than me, accepted the explanation, but insisted on speaking with me directly. I remained silent when he asked if I was okay, knowing anything I said would be filtered through the lens of mental illness Liam had created. The officer's confusion grew as he took in the cracked window, the tension in the room, the psychiatric evaluation forms spread across my desk. He requested backup, citing the need for a wellness check protocol. Sarah used the distraction to slip away from Liam's side, moving closer to examine the commitment papers under better light. Her cybersecurity training kicked in as she noticed inconsistencies in the formatting, subtle signs of digital manipulation in the signatures. The doubt that had been growing crystallized into suspicion. More officers arrived, filling my small dorm room with uniformed authority. They separated everyone for individual statements, standard procedure that threw Liam's carefully orchestrated scene into chaos. I watched him adapt again, his story shifting to accommodate the new dynamic while maintaining its core narrative of concern for my well-being. Dr. Martinez grew increasingly agitated as midnight approached. She tried to explain the urgency to the officers, showing them her credentials and the evaluation forms, but campus security had protocols to follow, and those protocols didn't include rushing psychiatric commitments in dorm rooms near midnight. Sarah pulled one of the officers aside, showing him the formatting inconsistencies she'd found. She explained her expertise, her growing concerns about the documentation's authenticity. The officer, trained to be thorough, decided to verify Dr. Martinez's credentials through official channels. The verification call revealed the first crack in Liam's system. While Dr. Martinez was indeed a licensed therapist, she wasn't affiliated with the practice listed on the evaluation forms. The discrepancy raised enough questions to halt any immediate action on the commitment papers. Liam's composure finally showed strain as he watched his timeline crumble. He produced more documents, backup plans for his backup plans, but each new piece of evidence only raised more questions. The officers, now suspicious, began examining everything more carefully. I used the chaos to access Mrs. Chen's phone again, this time searching for the photos I'd seen on Liam's tablet. If he'd synced his devices, there might be evidence in his cloud storage. My fingers flew across the screen, navigating to his account using passwords I'd observed him entering over months of careful watching. The folder was there, labeled with a woman's name I didn't recognize. Inside were hundreds of photos documenting another relationship, another systematic destruction. The parallels to my situation were undeniable, but more importantly, the metadata showed dates that contradicted Liam's story about his ex-girlfriend's hospitalization timeline. Sarah saw what I'd found and immediately understood its significance. She showed the officers, explaining how the dates proved Liam had been documenting his ex-girlfriend's supposed decline while simultaneously dating me. The overlap destroyed his narrative of being a caring boyfriend dealing with one troubled partner at a time. Dr. Martinez attempted to leave, claiming she had other patients to attend to, but the officers insisted she remain until they completed their investigation. Her professional facade cracked further as she realized the commitment papers would never be signed tonight, that her arrangement with Liam was unraveling. Liam tried one last manipulation, suggesting that my ability to access his accounts and find specific evidence proved I'd been stalking him, that my paranoid behavior was escalating. But the officers had seen too much, asked too many questions that he couldn't answer satisfactorily. The head officer made the decision to transport everyone to the campus security office for formal statements. The change of venue shattered Liam's control completely. He couldn't manage the narrative in an unfamiliar environment with multiple witnesses and official recording equipment. During transport, I noticed Sarah accessing her own laptop, running programs I didn't recognize. Her fingers flew across the keyboard with determined precision. She was doing what she did best, digging into digital footprints, following trails of metadata and cached files that Liam couldn't erase. At the security office, separated into different rooms, the stories began to diverge. Without Liam there to coordinate responses, Dr. Martinez's version of events didn't align with his. Mrs. Chen, confused and frightened, simply told the truth about what she'd observed, inadvertently revealing inconsistencies in Liam's timeline. Sarah's digital investigation yielded results faster than anyone expected. She found evidence of Liam's ex-girlfriend, but not in a psychiatric facility. The woman had transferred to a college across the country, changed her name, and rebuilt her life after escaping what she described in a single, chilling blog post as systematic psychological torture. The blog post, dated 6 months ago, described tactics identical to what I'd experienced. The false messages, the therapist collaboration, the gradual isolation, the commitment threats. She'd escaped only by by abandoning everything, leaving behind family and friends who still believed she'd suffered a mental breakdown. Campus security contacted local police, elevating the investigation beyond their jurisdiction. The complexity of the situation, the potential for criminal charges, the involvement of a licensed therapist in possible ethical violations required resources beyond what campus officers could provide. Liam's demeanor shifted when real police arrived. The charming boyfriend persona disappeared entirely, replaced by cold calculation. He requested a lawyer, refusing to answer any questions. His silence spoke volumes to investigators who'd seen similar patterns before. Dr. Martinez broke first, admitting to accepting payments from Liam for consultation services, but insisting she believed his concerns were genuine. Her license was immediately flagged for review, her practice suspended pending investigation. The speed of her downfall suggested this wasn't her first ethical violation. Sarah worked with investigators through the night, providing digital evidence that painted a clear picture of Liam's methods. The sophisticated nature of his technological manipulation impressed even seasoned cybercrime specialists. He'd created an almost perfect system for controlling and discrediting victims. The investigation revealed Liam had researched multiple women before selecting his targets. Social media profiles, academic records, family histories, all carefully analyzed for vulnerabilities. I'd been chosen specifically because of my previous anxiety issues and relatively isolated college experience. Mrs. Chen, once she understood the truth, became a powerful witness. Her detailed observations, recorded in a diary she kept about building activities, corroborated my timeline of when strange behaviors had occurred. Her meticulous nature, which Liam had exploited, now worked against him. The ex-girlfriend, contacted by investigators, agreed to provide a statement via video call. Her story, combined with mine, established a clear pattern of predatory behavior. She revealed that Liam had attempted to contact her recently, possibly planning to use her institutionalization story to further discredit me. Financial records subpoenaed from Dr. Martinez's practice showed regular payments from Liam over 2 years, labeled as research assistance, but coinciding with both relationships. The money trail provided concrete evidence of their ongoing arrangement. By dawn, the full scope of Liam's activities was becoming clear. He'd refined his methods with each victim, learning from what worked and what didn't. I'd been his most ambitious project yet, the one where he'd finally perfect his system of control. The police found evidence of at least 3 other women Liam had researched extensively, but hadn't pursued. Each file contained detailed vulnerability assessments, approach strategies, and manipulation timelines. The level of planning was staggering. Sarah stayed with me through every interview, every statement, every difficult revelation. Her guilt over nearly signing the commitment papers drove her to dig deeper, to ensure every aspect of Liam's scheme was exposed and documented. The university launched its own investigation, reviewing security footage that showed Liam entering my dorm at times I'd been in class. The footage corroborated Mrs. Chen's observations about strange behavior, showing him impersonating me in hallway interactions. Liam's laptop, seized as evidence, contained a treasure trove of incriminating data, drafts of fake messages, voice recordings edited to remove context, psychological manipulation techniques researched from academic papers. He'd turned gaslighting into a science. The investigation expanded as more evidence emerged. Other women came forward, sharing stories of relationships with Liam that had ended when they'd grown suspicious of his controlling behavior. Not all had been targeted for the full treatment, but the pattern was consistent. Dr. Martinez's patient files revealed she'd been documenting false therapy sessions for multiple people, creating paper trails for conditions that didn't exist. Her practice had been a front for something darker, a service for those who wanted to control others through psychiatric manipulation. The legal proceedings moved slowly but thoroughly. Charges were filed for fraud, identity theft, cyberstalking, and conspiracy. The case was complex, requiring coordination between multiple jurisdictions and agencies. Throughout it all, I struggled with the psychological aftermath. The investigation vindicated me, but the damage to my relationships remained. Friends who'd believed Liam's lies struggled to reconcile their actions with the truth. Some apologized, others simply disappeared. My academic career required rebuilding from scratch. Professors who'd received hostile emails understood the truth now, but the missed assignments and failed exams couldn't be retroactively fixed. The university offered accommodations, but I had to repeat the semester. The financial damage took months to unravel. Liam had destroyed my credit, drained accounts, and created debts in my name. Each issue required documentation, disputes, and lengthy resolution processes. The practical aftermath of psychological abuse proved nearly as challenging as the emotional recovery. Sarah threw herself into helping me rebuild, driven by guilt and determination. She used her skills to help restore my digital life, recover deleted files, and secure my accounts against future intrusions. Her support was invaluable, but our relationship had fundamentally changed. The investigation concluded with Liam facing multiple charges and Dr. Martinez losing her license permanently. Justice was served, but it felt hollow compared to what I'd lost. My innocence, my trust in others, my sense of safety in the world had been systematically destroyed. As I sat in my empty dorm room months later, surrounded by boxes as I prepared to transfer to a different school, I reflected on how completely Liam had succeeded in destroying my life, even though he'd failed in his ultimate goal. The truth had set me free, but freedom came with a price I was still paying. My phone buzzed with messages from other women who'd found strength in my story to come forward about their own experiences. I'd become an inadvertent advocate, someone who understood the insidious nature of psychological abuse and could validate others' experiences. The irony wasn't lost on me. Liam had tried to paint me as paranoid and delusional, but his actions had made me necessarily suspicious and guarded. He'd created the very thing he'd pretended I was, a person who questioned everything and trusted no one. I started therapy with a carefully vetted therapist, working to separate the trauma from my identity. Progress was slow, marked by setbacks and breakthroughs in equal measure. Learning to trust again felt like learning to walk after an injury, each step careful and deliberate. My family relationships slowly mended, though they'd never be quite the same. The ease of communication was gone, replaced by careful conversations and constant reassurances. They carried their own guilt about believing Liam's lies, about nearly committing me to psychiatric care. As I packed cracked the last box, I found the journal I'd hidden under my mattress, the one that had documented the strange incidents. Reading it now, knowing the truth, I saw how clearly the pattern had emerged. My instincts had been right, even when everything else felt wrong. The new school offered a fresh start, but I knew I'd carry the experience with me forever. Liam had taught me valuable lessons about trust, about the masks people wear, about the vulnerability of truth in the face of well-crafted lies. They were lessons I'd never wanted to learn. I left the dorm key on the desk and walked out, closing the door on the worst chapter of my life. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but mine to control again. Liam had taken so much, but he hadn't taken my ability to choose my own path forward. The recovery continues daily, in small victories and occasional setbacks. I learned to recognize manipulation tactics, to trust my instincts, to maintain boundaries. The hypervigilance may never fully fade, but it's a small price for freedom. My story became a cautionary tale on campus, discussed in psychology classes and resident advisor training. If my experience could prevent even one person from falling into a similar trap, perhaps something good could come from the nightmare. I still flinch when someone offers to help with too much enthusiasm, still double-check my digital security obsessively, still record important conversations. These habits, born from trauma, have become part of who I am now. Liam changed me irrevocably, but he didn't break me.